Recognizing the member from Peace River North.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today, I guess virtually, to speak to Bill 6, the Budget Measures Implementation Act. Maybe I'm having trouble saying it just because how disappointed I am in what I see in this piece of legislation. I'll start with, and maybe the members across the way can take note of this, and have these conversations with people in the ridings. Over the last little while, I've been meeting with people, meeting with stakeholders, visiting the coffee shops, and the message is very clear. People cannot afford. People can barely make ends meet. Our not-for-profit organizations, the fabric of our communities, are unable to make ends meet, unsure of how they're going to be able to carry on. So I encourage the members across the way to maybe go out and talk to those folks in their communities and understand how difficult it actually is right now to make ends meet. And, when we saw the budget come out, I was certainly disappointed in that. And of course, now we see Bill 6 here. There is no relief for these people and these organizations. Bill 6 is anything but affordable. It's taxing our way into affordability, which is impossible to do, Madam Speaker. Most people, and this has been talked about a lot, people are $200 away from being completely broke, insolvent. We've seen this before this budget came out and before our most recent increase in gasoline and our fuels. People were $200 away. It's only getting worse. And people were looking to this government for support. They were looking to this government for hope so that they might see a way out of this. They might see their dollars go a little further. But that isn't the case in the budget or in Bill 6. And it's really unfortunate, as one of the things that would have been nice to see in this, and there were a few, there are some tax breaks, and I'll get into those here momentarily, talking about the heat pumps or on electric cars, but there was nothing. And the government has seen this coming for a couple of few weeks now. But something that should have really been in this budget was some relief for the rising cost of fuel that we've seen. 25 cents a liter is within this provincial government's control. 25 cents a liter. We've seen our neighbors in Alberta look at some tax relief. Why was that not in Bill 6 as some tax relief? The trickle-down effect of the cost of fuel that this will impact, it's going to impact the cost of groceries. I'm here in Fort St. John. Everything comes in by truck up here. Our food, our products that we use to do, well, you name it, everything. There isn't hardly anything that, we purchased in the store that hasn't come on truck. Or to much lesser case by rail. But even still, those costs are going to be dramatically increased as we see the cost of fuel skyrocketing across the province. And this is not just a lower mainland. We're $2 a liter in Fort St. John, and it's even more than that when you go north into Fort Nelson. My colleague from Shuswap a moment ago mentioned, the cost of natural gas. Now, this is natural gas, of course, to heat the home. And if you can see behind me here, we're a long ways away from being able to turn my furnace off. In fact, I just received my natural gas bill. I guess it was about two weeks ago, almost $800, Honorable Speaker. $800 for 2 months of natural gas. Now, the thing is, I have no other choice to heat my home. And as we see the incredible amount of taxes, including carbon tax, which my honorable colleague there mentioned, is more than the cost of natural gas itself. It's not even close. The taxes on my natural gas bill, and I wish I had it in front of me, but I don't, are quadruple the actual cost of just the gas itself. So when I look here in Fort St. John, pretty much the entire month of December, nearly 4 weeks, we were sitting at minus 40 degrees. Minus 40 degrees. And that was before the wind chill. So that's the still temperature. I use a forced air furnace to heat my house. I understand the heat pumps that government has brought forward a tax break for, but heat pumps will not work in cold climates, which of course we have cold climates as soon as you leave the Lower Mainland. So these are big challenges, and when we see a government looking at making policy, and I call them cookie cutter policies, along the lines of, this works great in Vancouver, this works great in Victoria. Many of these things do not work in the rest of British Columbia. And this is one of those, by increasing taxes, and I'm getting to my point now, increasing taxes on furnaces, increasing taxes on hot water tanks, that directly penalizes people that live in rural BC, people that live in the remote parts of British Columbia. Just like not giving relief on the gasoline taxes. It's like giving a tax break on an electric car. The world is a little bit different up here in the north. We do rely on vehicles that have internal combustion engines, pickups that work out in industry, that are working out in the forest industry, pickups that are working out in the natural gas industry, so that people across this province, including in Vancouver, can turn their furnace on when it gets a little bit cold and know that there's going to be natural gas flowing into their furnace or into their boilers, so that they too can stay warm. Well, the folks that work up here in this part of the world require an internal combustion engine, because in 40 below weather, when those hardworking folks are out in the field working, you're not turning your vehicle off at minus 40 below. And when you're working outside, you are working outside for about 10 minutes, and now you're sitting in your vehicle to warm up for about 10 or 15 minutes. And you do that on a 10 or 12-hour shift. So when we start looking at the government in this Bill 6 giving a tax credit on a electric car, and I don't oppose the tax credit on electric cars, but it doesn't work across the province. When I see the gas taxes increasing on people that require their vehicles to continue on, just to continue to bring you what everybody in the province of British Columbia needs, that I do have a challenge for. And coming from a northern community, a rural community, I feel, again, it is an attack on us, an attack on our way of life. And, it is not fair when you tax me now because I need to, and this is a personal one for me. My furnace in my house is old, and I'm just in the market of looking for a new natural gas heater furnace. Well, you are now singling out myself and many others that live in these colder climates, because I have to heat my house with natural gas. I have now no choice but to pay this additional tax because of legislators that are making these rules out of Victoria or that live in Vancouver. These are not fair, and they do anything but making things affordable to British Columbians that rely and require these items. So on the, speaking of affordability, and I've just talked about one of the new taxes that are being implemented on natural gas items, hot water tanks. I didn't even talk about hot water tanks. There are concerns, of course, about farmers up in the interior and their uses of natural gas. We'll obviously find out more about that later. But another thing which a tax that middle income earner, low income earner, and we've heard my colleagues already speak about this, is the taxing people on getting a deal on a car. Honorable Speaker, I've only ever owned one new car in my life. Maybe I'm cheap, maybe not. Maybe I like to look for deals. Well, actually, I do. I enjoy looking for deals. I enjoy going through, the newspaper and when I need a vehicle and trying to find a deal out there. And, when I get that deal, and it is a deal, sometimes, I'm a fairly handy person. I can do a lot of repairs myself. And I'll look for vehicles that I can, maybe redo the brakes or redo the rear seals or, have to do something, with the engine. But now to have the ability for the government to say, no deals for you, we're going to tax you on, the black book price for that vehicle, the what we think the market value is completely preposterous. And I think here's my concern is a lot of young people, they take mechanics in school. They go out of their way to try and find that vehicle that is, maybe the engine's blowing or the transmission's blowing, and they're going to get that vehicle at a substantially lower cost than market value, because they are going to put in that extra money and they are going to make the repairs on that vehicle to make that vehicle drivable. And they do it, to save money for themselves, as well as they do it as a project. And now the government is telling that young person who's maybe it's his first vehicle or her first vehicle, and she's, wants to make this project, and she's now going to be taxed on it as a market value vehicle. But the government does say you can get a third party to evaluate that at the cost of, I'm not sure what the cost of a third party evaluator would be. I'm guessing in the area of a couple $100. Again, these are a tax on the middle and low income earners. The people that need that extra money, the people that are less than $200 away from being flat broke. Again, it's another attack on people that need that money in their pocket to get by, or the money maybe to go to tuition, or the difference between, do we have some fresh fruit this week for our family? These tax measures, as laid out in Bill 6, are attacking those people. And this government talks about affordability. It's laughable when we see all of these different pieces come into play that actually are completely opposite of affordable. And I've said numerous times in different talks over the last few years about every single year we are seeing new taxes. I'm not even sure what we're up to right now. We're approaching 30 new taxes since this government has taken over in 2017. 30 new taxes. It's absolutely scary. And from a government that's talking affordability, well, I go back to my line I said earlier. They're trying to tax their way into affordability, and that does not work. It is unrealistic, and it's hurting the average British Columbian. Speaking of the average British Columbian, and we've certainly seen this over the past couple of years with COVID, is the increased use of internet to make purchases, online markets. Like I say, over the last 2 years, this has been an area that has obviously bloomed, which has, made people the ability to stay home and do some shopping on their computer. And obviously the government felt really bad. They were missing out on some tax revenue because they're going to be taxing that now. again, for the most part, and I don't want to pigeonhole everybody into this, but predominantly, I would say, middle to low income earners are the ones out there online trying to get the deals, and now they're being taxed on this. So the poor person that wants to go out and buy a used car, that lives up here and may need a new hot water tank or a new furnace, which I guess they can't buy that online because they're gonna. How is that going to work? Are they going to be double taxed on buying a furnace online as well? You've got to pay the marketplace tax as well as it's just layers upon layers of tax, layers upon layers of attacking the middle and low income earners across this province. We haven't even talked about, and again, I know this. We're on Bill 6 right now, but it's tied to this, is the level of debt that this province is taking on. And I guess, when obviously the government is struggling right now to make revenue, and we've seen, let's be honest, this government is chasing the resource sector out of this province, whether it's oil and gas. We are seeing companies moving to our neighboring jurisdictions down to Texas. We're seeing forest companies closing, leaving, looking elsewhere, investing heavily in other areas, the mining industry. So obviously this government is being challenged right now with finding the revenue that they need to do their little projects and the raises. I guess they need the extra money to deal with the cabinet ministers' $20,000 raise and the premier's $40,000 raise. I guess they need all this money. So, with a strong majority that they do have in this House, I guess they're just going to ram these taxes through to help pay for all these little things. Crank the debt up to $125 billion. Our deficit projected at $5 billion. When is it going to stop, Honorable Speaker? Affordability. This is a government that has talked about affordability since they were elected. The promises made in the 2017 election, the promises made in the 2020 election about affordability. People were hopeful that the budget that was introduced a couple of weeks ago, now in Bill 6, they were hopeful that they might see some relief. But, Honorable Speaker, it's anything but relief. It's another gut punch. It's another hand reaching deeper into the pocket. And people cannot afford it. Again, we see people are less than $200 away from being completely broke, insolvent. Another piece that I can tie in as well with some of these tax breaks for electric cars, taxing those who are getting a deal on a used vehicle. Most of my friends up here are the people, a lot of people that I know are buying the used cars. And I know it's to promote people using public transit. And again, I go back to what I talked about earlier, these cookie cutter approaches that are, they work wonderful. If I lived downtown Vancouver, I probably would not have a car. The transit system in Vancouver is really good. I use it when I go down there. Whether it's the bus or SkyTrain or whatever, I do use that. But in Fort Nelson, there is no transit. In Fort St. John, the transit is limited. My colleague spoke earlier from Peace River South, limited transit in his communities, and Peace River South and Peace River North are very similar geographically. Our industries, we share industries. And when we see this attack on people that drive a vehicle that burns fossil fuels, we don't have the choice. And I mentioned that earlier on. We need these vehicles to work in the different sectors that provide for the rest of the province. Whether that's, even our agriculture sector, these costs that are going through the roof right now are going to trickle down into every single thing that we purchase. Everything. And I'm not sure if government sees that or not. Because from what I see in Bill 6, the government doesn't see the impact of these tax increases. and how they're going to impact everything. Because at the end of the day, there's one taxpayer, and that's every British Columbian. And all of these taxes and increases, not only in Bill 6, but over the past 3-4 years, they are all stretching everybody to the end. And it really scares me where we're going. I would like to say government does recognize this, as they even, specifically, I believe my colleagues have mentioned this already on page 91. It even says that individuals involved in private vehicle transactions are more likely to be low to medium income and living in rural areas. Well, Honorable Speaker, talk about disrespectful. Here they even have that these tax increases are going to impact the medium and low income families, as well as people that live in rural communities. But who cares, is what this government is saying. Who cares? We're going to go forward with it anyways. And that's exactly what this NDP government has done. They've ignored their own comments in their own budget documents that say these taxes are going to impact low and medium income families and people that live in rural parts of BC. Well, the heck with all of you then. We're going to carry on and do it anyways, is what I read out of that. And myself, living in a rural community and standing up for the folks of Peace River North, it's completely unacceptable that there is this attack on rural BC, and especially our medium and low income families. And following on the footsteps, and I know I mentioned this, but I might as well mention it again. The pats on the back around the budget, the pats on the back around, oh, we're doing all this, and we need a $20,000 raise. You can't get any more tone deaf than that, Honorable Speaker. Even if you dig a little bit further and in some of these documents, and they are thick, and I do encourage British Columbians, they are available. You can come to my constituency or go to any constituency office. You can, we have copies of the documents. We're more than willing to get it to you. It's online, and to look at some of this language that this government is putting out there around, around their budget. It's even beyond just taxing people to death. It's about how they're doing it and the transparency. And we've talked about transparency over the last number of years, that this government is anything but transparent. And, I know this was mentioned earlier, but I didn't even know that there was an award around secrecy, being the most secret government in Canada. I didn't know that award existed until just recently, when the NDP government in the province of British Columbia received it. And this award wasn't just something, just thrown out there. I mean, this is, excuse me, Honorable Speaker. I'm getting really excited here. And this award is awarded by media outlets in Canada. And our government is being recognized as one of the most secret government in British Columbia. And we've seen this over and over again. Doesn't matter if we're talking up here on the consultation around Caribou, or working with the Snowmobile Association, or whatever. The finance minister in Bill 6 is also reducing transparency around the budget. Big project used to come forward and it would have to go through Treasury Board. There was a process for the finance minister if she wanted to spend stuff, but no longer, Honorable Speaker, no longer. This government has now delegated the finance minister to make decisions all by herself and bypass the Treasury Board. How is that transparent? At the same time, again, taking away the accountability for ministers to work within their budgets. And that's kind of where that $20,000 bonus comes from. Ministers are no longer held accountable to stay within budget. And here's 20 grand anyways. Good job on whatever. Again, out of touch. I mean, just picture this conversation with someone, go down to the A&W and have a coffee with the hardworking folks sitting around chatting about affordability, and they can't afford to fuel up their vehicle, and their furnace is broke now. They can't afford to get a new furnace. They can't afford to buy fresh groceries from the store. And you look to the government and say, you're here to help, and we need you to lead. And you see all of this stuff coming, and all you hear is, well, we can't really do that. We're just going to tax, and pat ourselves on the back and give ourselves a $20,000 raise. People are angry. People are angry around the province. Everybody that I speak to is upset with what is happening right now in this government, in the direction that this government is going around their so-called affordability. Honorable Speaker, this government is anything but affordable. We've seen it over the past few years. It doesn't matter what, talk is cheap, and we've seen that. We have not seen any real deliverables that have helped people. It doesn't matter the housing promises, doesn't matter the $10 daycare promises, the rental rebate promises. All of these promises laid out here in Bill 6, or not promises, all these taxes and such laid out here in Bill 6 is devastating to most British Columbians. And we need to be looking out for them. And as COVID is finishing up, this was a great opportunity. Budget 6, the budget implementation, the budget itself, the throne speech, Honorable Speaker. These were opportunities for this government to chart a path forward that would instill hope, that would instill confidence, that would make people of British Columbia say, hey, our government is looking out for us. Our government is here, to make things affordable, to bring the economy back in line, to look after our vulnerable populations, to do all of these things. But they're not. They're doing everything opposite, in my mind. So as we move forward, and I see my time's already out, and I've hardly touched half of the stuff I wanted to talk about, Honorable Speaker, but when I talk and I talk passionately about this, and I talk passionately about these costs that are going to be incurred not only by the residents that live in my riding of Peace River North, and I do feel many of these taxes that are going to unfairly treat folks in my riding and other rural ridings unfairly. It really angers me. Also, when I look at the debt that we've taken on, the deficits we're looking at, the taxation that's being come, I think about my own kids, and what kind of a future they have. And I hope they stay in the province of British Columbia, but I worry that as they become adults, greener pastures might not be in this beautiful place we call British Columbia, because our present government is making it near impossible to live in this province. So with that, Honorable Speaker, I do thank you very much for this time that I've had today. I cannot support this. I just talking to people in my riding, this is not good for us. This is not good for British Columbians. And with that, thank you very much for the time, and I will pass it over to my colleagues.